For many, Rogue Legacy was a bridge too far in a town filled with bridges, mostly constructed with roguelites. It was just seen as one more on the Nintendo Switch and went largely ignored by many. Behind the scenes, I've been playing it, and developer Cellar Door Games have done far more than simply produce another roguelite. And even if, like me, you're feeling the burn of one too many of this genre, Rogue Legacy might have something to offer you, and you may, like me, find yourself entirely addicted. Is Rogue Legacy 2 from royal lineage or a disgrace to the family? Well, let's find out. As far as story, well, you have to piece this together through your runs. A king, Cain, eats an apple from the Tree of Life. From that he gets immortality, and then he tells two priests to transfuse the soul of his dead brother Abel into a child, thus granting that family the same soul which passes down generation to generation. You could play through most of the game and not fully understand the narrative, but there's an excellent subreddit for this. I'll pop a link to it in the description, as there's a really handy overview. As with the first game, you'll play as a new member of this lineage, and you'll be able to choose from one of 3 different options. They'll have unique names, statistics, as well as a class, and Rogue Legacy expands on the class system quite dramatically. Starting out with simplistic warriors, you'll soon unlock dragon lancers, bards, and even the awesome gunslinger. Every single class in the game has special abilities. You'll have your main attack, as well as 2 others. Usually one of these will have a cooldown and the other will be tied to your mana pool. Now, Rogue Legacy 2 describes itself as having Metroidvania elements, and in that regard it has similarities to Dead Cells. For example, you'll start out each run in the same castle. However, the layout and different rooms will be changed. You can, through a character back at the main base, lock the map so it doesn't change, but just as with Dead Cells, it's split through several biomes. The change here though is that you don't have to progress through these in any particular order, and you can return to ones you've previously visited. In that regard, it's much more open with a traditional Metroidvania style map. There are teleporters which lead to different areas within each stage, or indeed back and forth between the different biomes, and you can pay some of your gold to permanently unlock these. This gives a sense of persistence to each run, which is really important for reducing any potential frustration. There are what's known as heirlooms. You have to complete a little trial, which are essentially challenges which unlock new abilities, with some of the biomes requiring you to have these prerequisites before you'll be able to traverse them, with a good early example being the ability to bounce off of these high enough that you can reach the next areas, while another unlocks the ability to dash after a jump. As you struggle to stay alive and collect gold coins, you'll come across relics, with there usually being the choice between 2, and you have to try them out before you know exactly what they do, much like classics like The Binding of Isaac. There are hundreds of different monsters trying to put an end to your fun, and with such a variety of classes, strangely, death became something I almost looked forward to. I wanted to see exactly what I'd be able to unlock next. And how you do this? Well, it's all through that collected gold. You'll invest that into building up your castle. There's so much to upgrade, and everything feels like it actually does something, whether it's increasing your health or unlocking a brand new class, of which there are 15, but the lineage system means that no 2 of the same class will ever be identical. They'll have unique traits, such as dwarfism. You'll start out really small at the beginning of a run, which makes it much easier to avoid attacks, but your health may be lower. Now, the castle system's very clever. Not only does it give a persistence to the runs, but it adds new ways to modify your play, as you'll unlock certain shops, which you can then access on your way out to your next run. You may have found a sword which can then be purchased and equipped, or some new armor, and that's just really the tip of the iceberg, and it's where I come back to what I said at the start. Not all roguelites are made equally, and the standouts like Dead Cells, Hades, and now Rogue Legacy 2 do much more than simply kill the player off and have them restart. They manage to create a vast experience, but condensed down to something which feels palatable. There's lore and narrative abound here, but it has to be discovered as you play through the different runs. As well as the challenge rooms, you'll also find boss areas. These see you fighting for your life before trying to defeat the final boss, which will usually see you rewarded with a relic or permanent character upgrade. It's not all simply fighting enemies though. There's a good deal of platforming here, with something to test even those with pure Hollow Knight running through their veins. The challenge rooms will show you a specific task in the corner, with a set criteria like don't take damage, or kill all the enemies, and if those stringent goals are met, you'll be rewarded with a hefty bit of loot. To encourage players to experiment with different classes, they've added in a smart system which essentially adds a gold multiplier to some of the offspring. For example, one very powerful boxer that I took control of had the unfortunate genealogical trait that they were incredibly frail and would die with a single hit, but the gold modifier was about 300%, and it was one of the most memorable runs I had. Every screen was skin of the teeth, desperately trying to survive, and it's amazing what you can actually do when you really try your hardest in a game. Now, yes, I did eventually fall in quite an embarrassing way, but my goodness was it fun getting there, and the amount of gold that I took out was significantly more than I had done in the previous 2 runs. It's so satisfying to see that castle get larger and larger, but you better make sure you're not plugged in because you will not stop playing this one. Overall for me, the gameplay is excellent. By its nature, some may find it a little repetitive, but it's hugely enjoyable and standout in its genre. Gameplay scores 18 out of 20, and there's a handy house rules system which allows you to tweak the difficulties to exactly match your playstyle if you so choose. As far as the controls, well, they're absolutely fine. They're responsive, with very low input latency, and while the spin kick move, which requires you to hold the left stick down and push a button, feels a little awkward at first, it can be remapped to a more simple setup, as can many of the other control options. Controls also score 18 out of 20. The visual improvements over the first game are evident. Running on the Unity engine, it uses a hand-painted 2.5D art style. It's far more technically impressive than initially meets the eye, with some 3D lighting effects, shaders put to good use to give everything some depth, as well as some great animations for both the player and the enemies. Stylistically, it's on the money, with the different looks of each of your lineage, and the environments also looking entirely unique. It does use some procedural generation. It seems to use a system whereby it's procedurally locking together different rooms that have been handcrafted, as there are some that you will see time and time again. With that said though, I didn't find myself getting bored of what was here. On the contrary, knowing a room became a useful addition to my run, and even then the enemy placements would change, so I always had to be on my toes. Acoustically, Judson Cohen, Gordon McGladdery and Grant Henry have done a great job. The soundtrack carries everything along beautifully. With good sound effects added in to boot, and no annoying repetitive loops. And back to performance, it's 60 frames per second in both docked and handheld and running at native resolution. Despite the obvious asset and area recycling, it's a lovely game to look at. Visuals and performance score 18 out of 20, with sound and audio scoring 19 out of 20. Rogue Legacy will set you back £22.49 or your regional equivalent. The experience is squeezed into 1.1 gigs, and your first run is going to take you probably around about 30 hours. Then you've got the new game plus mode, the plus mode, and loads of different secrets, items and lore to find. A completionist run is going to take you over 100 hours. It's a game that shows its 4 years of intensive development with a ton of variety, excellent performance, and as a result, really good value. Value scores 19 out of 20. For those of us who thought we were sick of roguelites, well, Rogue Legacy 2 might have something to offer you. It's an entirely addictive, very cleverly put together title that builds upon its lineage system with strong, tightly designed classes that feel entirely unique. It gets a SwitchUp score of 92% and is certainly one you may wish to add to your wish list or place quite high up on that very large backlog mountain. Thanks to all of you that enjoy the content. I hope this has been of some use to you, and as always, if you are going to pick up the game, you can save yourself 10% by using code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg to buy your eShop credit. And thanks to our Patreons and our members, and as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!